So in this week's gear guide for connected learning, I'm going to talk about a question that I often get, and that is, do I need a video camera or should I be shooting with a DSLR? And it's a question that's not easy to answer, and to help me with this, I've brought in Mark Esplin. Mark was a multimedia journalist out in Brunei and has recently moved to Istanbul. Mark, could you introduce yourself just quickly?
Sure. Well, as you say, I'm a multimedia journalist. I'm currently based in Istanbul. I came from a photojournalism background, and like many people, when the 5D came out, I joined that whole revolution and started getting interested in video. And now most of my paid work is with video.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to get onto this in a minute. You've recently bought a C100, which is a dedicated video camera, and you were a photojournalist and you've transitioned into doing video and photography. Now, before we get into that, I want to just show you how I work first, because one of the key problems with DSLRs is that although they're great for stills and they make amazing video, is that they don't have all the video functionality that we would normally like. So what I have here, and I'm just bringing it over, is my kit. I don't know if you can see that, Mark, but this is my kit that I use for going out and shooting. I'm going to go through this very quickly, what I've got on this. Now, this is really kind of rigging up or trying to create a video camera or a functioning video camera with the DSLR body. Now, the main advantage for me, and the reason why I'm still doing this, is that I need to take stills often at the same time. And although it's not easy, I can still put my eye up to the camera and take still photographs and get the same sort of quality that I want. I can also, if I've got it on a tripod, take a still after I've done a video shot. Now, for this, I'm going to bring one more thing into my hand here. Let me just go through it very quickly. So I have a shotgun microphone mounted on top. Now, this is like a good quality shotgun rather than the small shotgun that I use when I'm running around just for getting B-roll. I've also actually here got a radio mic mounted on the top here. Now, this allows me to have two inputs, one on my main character if I'm following somebody around, and then other just for general sound. And I can put one to the left channel and one to the right channel. Now, in order to do this, because the sound facilities within the DSLR is not very good, I also have a sound mixer bolted onto this rig, and it's all bolted onto this flash bracket, which I like to use. And that means that I can turn on and turn off the sound, and I can adjust my levels as I'm shooting, and obviously listening to it on a headphone. Now, I would also need for this, particularly if I'm going to be going down low or I'm going to go up high, I'd also need some kind of viewfinder. Now, at the moment, I've got the 70D mounted on this, and so for this, I have a flip-out screen which can go up and down, which means that I can see if I'm going high or if I'm going low, what I'm shooting. At least I get an idea of what I'm framing. But I might also, or I might sometimes, bolt on a monitor as well onto this rig to make it usable. Now, it's not the easiest of things to run around with. I still, as I said, get the joy of being able to shoot stills as well as video, but I have to bolt all these things on. I also have to carry with me a ND filter, a variable ND filter, which allows me to get those wide apertures as I'm shooting. And that's got to be screwed onto the front of the camera, on the front of the lens, when I'm in a bright situation. So all in all, not really the most easy thing to put together. And also, once I get to a place, if there's something happening, if I'm following a protest or something and I jump out the car, all the stuff's in my backpack. It's going to take me probably 10 minutes to set this all up before I'm up and going. So this is a real disadvantage with using DSLRs in situations where we don't have much time or we're following action and we're moving around. Just another option for this, you put that down here. You can also get additional stabilization devices such as this, which goes on the shoulder. Now, once this is bolted on, it's difficult to take stills as well, but it does give me a bit more stabilization. And there's lots of different variations of this. Also, sometimes I would use a cage rather than the flash bracket, and the cage allows me to hold the camera either on the side like this or underneath, and then bolt on all of those additional things that I need. So, as you can see, all of these pieces, trying to shoot in situations where things are moving faster, or if I'm following a subject around, the DSLR is not the best camera, but nowadays we can still get that same look by purchasing large sensor video cameras. There's a whole bunch of new ones, Canon with the C100, C300, and then Sony have a whole bunch, and now Panasonic as well. Now, Mark, you have invested in the C100, and can you tell us a little bit about the advantages, having seen all of this paraphernalia that I have? What is the advantages to you of using it in daily assignments that you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you've pretty much just nailed it in one, why I upgraded to a dedicated video camera, really. I mean, to think the advantage you have with a DSLR is that you can shoot beautiful looking video and stills at the same time. But in a real world scenario, as you say, you jump out of a car, it takes you 20 minutes to put your camera together in some cases. Whereas with this, everything is self-contained. All of those add-ons are essentially built in here. We have the ND filters, which is just a small wheel that we can run through there. The audio on top brings in your XLRs, and you can monitor, change the levels on the audio very quickly. And so I think that it was really frustrating at some point working with the 5Ds and the DSLRs, in that to get consistently accurate video, so even things like focusing with such shallow range without peaking, and as you say, with the viewfinder and bright sunlight and things like this, it became quite a challenge. Whereas something that's more designed for video just becomes more natural to shoot with, and you spend a lot less time in worrying about setting up your equipment than you do actually going out and filming. Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons I like using the 70D on this is, well, two reasons actually. One, because of the flip-up screen, and the second is the autofocus function on it. Now, I know we shouldn't be using autofocus, but when you're carrying this around with all of your hands, trying to get another hand around to focus, and also to be able to do that accurately in bright light is often quite difficult. Whereas the autofocus, normally, if it's tracking a person, a main character in the video, will pretty well get it right and lock on. Now, I'm wondering how you deal with that, because one of the sort of downsides of the C100 is it didn't have very good reviews in terms of the viewfinder, but it has more recently been given a firmware update, which means it can autofocus as well.
It has, yeah. I'll be looking to send my camera in to get it done, I think. I haven't had the chance to do that just yet, but from what I've seen, it works very well. As you say, it's not something that I'd want to rely on all the time. I think if you were doing ENG, kind of breaking news environment stuff, then maybe the autofocus would come into its own more. But generally speaking, I do okay with the manual focusing. But I think as I work as a one-person, one-band kind of situation, if you're interviewing someone and they're moving back and forth like this, I mean, I'm filming with a DSLR with this, and you'll probably see me come in and out of focus. So things like having the autofocus there just helps keep things sharp and helps you kind of get on with focusing on the interview and the story, which is what matters at the end of the day. As well, things like tracking, if you're on a dolly system or a slider system, maybe you're on a gimbal or you're flying a camera, then you can't physically focus at the same time as doing that. So everything we shot was really wide angled, deep apertures, and it restricts you at the end of the day. But I think for situations where you have control, you have a bit more time, maybe you're doing documentary stuff that's a bit slower paced, then I think you can manually focus. But certainly in a breaking news environment, it can be tough to make sure that you're really getting stuff in.
Now, one of the things that I have to often do with my assignments is also take stills, because I'm working for online and they need not just video, but they need still pictures to go with the story. Now, have you tried shooting stills with a C100? Is that something that you think is doable, or would you say you need to bring a second camera, which is what people often recommend to me?
Yeah, no, I bring a second camera. I mean, you have the ability to shoot stills with this, and I could be wrong, but I believe when you shoot a still, it's basically a screen grab. So you're shooting something very low resolution, and the practicalities of it, it's not designed to shoot stills. So I do carry a second body with me, which again is an argument, do you need the second body? I always tended to carry two when I was shooting stills anyway, just so I didn't have to change lenses so much. So I'm kind of used to that, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't want to shoot stills with it.
Okay, now one of the big advantages of moving up to one of these cameras nowadays is that they're interchangeable lenses, which means that you can bring the stills lenses that you've collected maybe over the years as a stills photographer and put them on either directly on, I think the C100 takes the standard Canon lenses, right?
Yeah.
Or you could use one of the sort of new variety of adapters that will allow you to put other lenses on. How have you got on with that? Have you stuck with the previous photojournalist lenses that you were using before, or have you purchased?
I have, yeah. I mean, the cinema lenses and things like this are beautiful. They look great, but they come with a big price tag. And I've already invested quite a lot from stills lenses, so I had the whole range. And so this is one of the reasons why I stuck with Canon and kind of upgraded into their cinema range, was because I don't have to make that extra investment to get new glass. I can use everything that I'm used to, have had for a few years even. And yeah, they combine really easily. Okay. So there's another good example of where something like this benefits. I've just had to press record and stop the interview on my DSLR because of the restrictions on how long you can record for, whereas something like this, I can film until the memory card's full, basically.
That's not such a disadvantage on the latest cameras, but I think they go up to 30 minutes now. Certainly I'm still recording on my DSLR, so, but it, as you said, yeah, this will just keep going, keep recording until you sort of run out. And you can also plug in external hard drives as well and record directly onto them.
Yeah, so I tend to use the Atomos Ninja, which plugs in with a HDMI onto, I usually put it on the top here. And there's a few advantages of that. You have a larger monitor to see from, but also it gives you a broadcast-friendly codec. And if you're working for web, maybe you're working for a newspaper, something like that, it's not necessarily an issue. But if you're branching out into a freelance role and you want to do some stuff for television, a lot of places won't accept purely DSLR footage, whereas something like this with the camera means that you can tick that quality box.
So just to summarize now, so we're saying that effectively, if I just pick up my rig here again, that this rig that I've created for my DSLR, it's all now put together into the C100 or into one of these modern video cameras. So the shotgun microphone will just clip onto the top of yours. I don't know if you can just show us where it would go on your camera.
Sure.
So you have this place here. I have my microphone set up over here for now.
Right. And then you have two XLR ports to go in here, which is what I've got on this mini mixer. And all the functionality of the mixer. I have a radio mic plugged in here, but I guess there's plenty of places that you can put a radio mic on the top. And then you have the handle on the top, which means that you can hold it for going low and up. You have the monitor built in on the back, which I'm presuming will flip out so that you can see up and down. And you have the built-in neutral density filters. Just for you, it's just a flick of a switch. For me, I have to screw this onto the front of the lens every time I go in. And if I'm going inside and then outside a lot, that can be a real pain to do. So your cat has just caused some trouble. So all in all, it's a much easier solution, much quicker to work with, much more handy to work with a video camera. You don't have the stills function, so you have to bring another stills camera if you need to do stills as well. It's about the same price. You can use the same lenses that you've had before. So it's not 100% sure. I haven't gone there yet because a lot of my assignments I'm not running around. So when I occasionally have to run around, I will put this rig together. But for anyone who's doing a lot of breaking news and they need to shoot a lot of video, I guess having an outfit like this is going to be much more useful. And certainly in your kind of old job, which you were doing, and now as a freelancer, where you're doing assignments on a daily basis, doing a lot of video, I would imagine that it doesn't take long before you start reaping the benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. And even with the newspaper that I was working at previously, if you were shooting video and there wasn't a reporter with you, perhaps there wasn't a photographer available, and you didn't have your stills camera, the resolution of this is fine for print. I mean, it's not ideal, obviously a stills camera is better, but if you're really pushed to, then you can do a screen grab and it will print into a newspaper okay.
And it's worth mentioning as well, before I sign off, is that there are sort of slightly lower end versions of this. So that Sony have now started to produce some new cameras that kind of combine a little bit of both. There's a new, I think it's a 4.3 or a smaller chip camera that has a built-in 2.8 18-200 lens, I think, or equivalent to 28-200 lens. It has the ND filters built in. It has all sorts of other add-ons which you can very quickly attach. They also do large chip video cameras that don't have all of that functionality but have a lot of it already built in, but much smaller, more handy to hold. So you still get the DSLR look, but you are limited to the lens that's on the camera or whatever. So it's worth sort of investigating all sorts of other areas as well as this, but it's certainly, I think, if you're doing a lot of video, something that you should be considering. Mark, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And I hope we're going to get you back on the WorldPress Photo Connected Learning site sometime soon to discuss some of your work, which is also very interesting. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you, DJ.